I'm telling you, Catherine, if we tell the headmaster and the bursar there's a piping festival in St. Lucia,
Craig,
they'll let us go.
Mr. Muirhead, we've gone live.
Oh, good evening, and welcome to Strathallan School's 2021 Burn Supper, which we can't do in person this year, so we've moved things online. We've got a great night of entertainment ahead, and we're starting off with a bit of a foot tapper here from the Headmaster's piper, Xander, who's going to play Scotland the Brave. Over to you, Xander.
As many of you will know, the Burn Supper is a regular feature of the Strathallan calendar. In normal times it's organised by Mrs McFarlane, our resident Scots language expert and Burns aficionado. It's a time of good food, good company, time to get dressed up. I see you've made the effort.
I can see you, haven't I? Never mind, you're looking far better than that lot out there, I can tell you that. I don't mind telling you I feel like an absolute plonker here in my living room with my tartan trews and my dicky bow on, but such are the times we live in. Now, we're heading over again to Xander, who's going to pipe in the haggis in the traditional way with the famous Burns song, A Man's a Man for All That. Now the next performer needs no introduction at all. He's my big pal, Mr Henderson, and he's here to address the haggis.
Fair fa your honest sonsy face, great chieftain o' the Burn race. Aboon them a' ye tak your place, pench, tripe or thern. Willie ye worthy o' a grace, as lang as my arm. The groaning trencher there ye fill, your hurdies like a distant hill. Your pin would help to mend a mill in time o' need, while through your pores the dews distil like amber bead. His knife see rustic labour dipped, and cut you up with ready slicked, trenching your gushing entrails brick like ony ditch. And then, oh, what a glorious sight! Warm, reeking, rich. Then horn for horn they stretch and strive, till tap the hindmost on they drive, till all their wheels swallowed kites belive are bent like drums. The old good man mislikes to rive, but think it hums. Is there that o'er his French ragout, or olio that would stow a sou, or fricassee with mac or spew with perfect scunner, looks down with sneer and scornful view on seek a dinner. Poor deal, see him o'er his trash, as feckless as a withered rash, his spindled shank a good whip lash, his knee a knit, through bloody flood or field to dash. Ooh, how unfit! But mark the rustic haggis fade, the trembling earth resounds his tread, clapped in his wally knee a blade, he'll mark it whistle, and legs, and arms, and heads he'll sned, like taps o' thistle. You powers home up when kind your care, and dish them out their bill of fare. Old Scotland wants nae skinking wear, but joups and luggies. But if you wish her great for prayer, gie her a haggis. Slange.
Can I ask you all to now charge your glasses with juice or something stronger for the adults and raise a toast to the haggis. To the haggis!
So thank you to fifth former Johnnie for his toast to the haggis. Now by now you should have had your supper. Haggis, neeps, tatties, and something traditionally Scottish to wash it down with too. Iron brew, of course. We're going to move on to the more formal part of the evening now, where we remember the legacy of Robert Burns and his contribution to Scottish culture. And tonight that's going to be brought to you by sixth former Ben.
Firstly, I'd like to thank the members of staff who organised this supper and gave me the opportunity to give the immortal memory this evening. I'd also like to thank the mums and dads at home who provided excellent catering. Robert Burns was born on the 25th of January 1759 in a cottage built by his father, William Burns. Since then, Burns's appeal has grown to be universal. His life and work is celebrated across every corner of the globe, and I think it's fantastic that we're all able to come together online to continue the renowned Scottish tradition of a Burns supper. I don't know how easy it would be to find a haggis in Hong Kong or Germany or Mexico, but hopefully anyone who can is enjoying theirs tonight. Like most of the world this year, Burns spent very little time in his school classroom. Most of his education happened at home, though while we had Teams and Zoom, Burns had his father. Robert Burns was not afraid to convey his political views through his writing. He had a strong belief that all men and women were of equal worth, an idea which was viewed as extremely radical, challenging the status quo of the time, but it would be rightly seen as inhumane to disagree with today. He conveyed his message beautifully in To a Mouse, where he compares the treatment of a farmer to a small farm mouse to the treatment of the wealthy to the poor. Thou saw the fields lay bare and waste, a weary winter coming faced, and cosy here beneath the blast thou thought to dwell. It is perhaps his ability to convey big ideas through small means that makes him so well remembered and loved to this day. A national poll in 2010 voted Robert Burns the greatest Scot of all time, ahead of Sir Alexander Fleming, William Wallace, Sean Connery, and even Mr. Henderson. I think Burns would be very proud of the way the world has progressed since his passing in 1796. His words have inspired so many well-known figures to this day. Singer Bob Dylan has cited A Red Red Rose by Robert Burns as his greatest inspiration. His views on equality are being realised and progressed right this minute. Just this week, Kamala Harris was sworn in as the first person of colour and the first woman to be Vice President of the United States. Here in Scotland we see Nicola Sturgeon, a woman, serving as our First Minister. Burns was ardently opposed slavery, and this position was acknowledged by Muhammad Ali, who paid a visit to the Burns Museum. I also have a slight suspicion that Burns's love for long speeches may have inspired our own headmaster, Mr. Lauder. I hope everyone's had a very enjoyable evening. To the immortal memory of Robert Burns.
Now we've got a real treat for you. Misha is going to sing A Fond Kiss, and this is absolutely beautiful, followed by our very own Robert Burns aficionado, Mrs. McFarlane.
We had ne'er been broken hearted. Fare thee weel, my first and fairest. Fare thee weel, my best and dearest. Thine be ilka joy and treasure, peace, enjoyment, love and pleasure. A fond kiss and then we sever. A farewell, alas, forever. Deep in heart-wrung tears I'll pledge thee. Warring sighs and groans I'll wage thee.
Willie Wastle dwelt on Tweed. The spot they called it Lincoln Doddy. Willie was a Webster gid, could stown a clue wi' onybody. He had a wife, was dour and din. Tinkler Madgie was her mother. Sic a wife as Willie's wife. I wouldn't gie a button for her. She has an E. She has but yin. The cat has twa the very colour. 5 rusty teeth forby a stump. A clapper tongue would deave a miller. A whisking beard about her moo. Her nose and chin they threaten ither. Sic a wife as Willie's wife. I wouldn't gie a button for her. She's bow-hawked. She's hen-shinned. A limping leg a horn-breed shorter. She's twisted recht. She's twisted left. To balance fair in ilka quarter. She has a hump upon her breast. The twin of that upon her shoulder. Sic a wife as Willie's wife. I wouldn't gie a button for her. All bodrins by the Engel sits, and we her loof, her face a washing. But Willie's wife is nae sae trig. She dicks her grinsy wi' a hushin'. Her wally neaves like midden creels. Her face would file the Logan water. Sic a wife as Willie's wife. I wouldn't gie a button for her.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. It wouldn't be Burns night at Strathallan without Mrs. McFarlane. Now we're going to move forward to the less formal part of the evening. Our heads of school, Suzy and Fergus, are going to take you through the traditional toast to the Lassies and then the Lassies' response.
When I was asked to make the toast to the Lassies, I was confused on 2 fronts. My first issue was that I wasn't exactly sure what the boundaries were. Poking fun on the basis of gender is quite risky business in today's age. After all, nobody takes a joke quite like a teenage girl. My second problem was that I'd never read a line of Robert Burns' poetry in my life, and I had no idea who he was as a person. He was a mystery to me, not too dissimilar to how the behaviours of women are a mystery to most men. After researching the man, it became clear that he loved women in every sense, but his actions made him a walking contradiction on the subject. When Robert Burns wrote about his wife Jean, he said, "There was a lass, and she was fair, at kirk or market to be seen. When our fairest maids were met, the fairest maid was bonny Jean." From this, one may infer that Burns was a true romantic, utterly infatuated by his true love. The contradiction, however, comes when we discover that Burns had many mistresses outside of his marriage, thus displaying commitment levels that any sixth form boy would be proud of. Burns was surprisingly progressive when it came to the topic of women's social standing in the 18th century, and he proved as such in his poem, The Rights of Woman. He said, "And even children lisp the rights of man. Amid this mighty fuss, let me mention, the rights of woman merit some attention." However, Burns would again contradict himself when alluding to the nagging nature of women in his poem Tam O'Shanter, although he did mean well on the most part. It would be interesting to see how a man so entranced by the opposite sex would cope in today's age. Social distancing wasn't exactly Burns' thing, especially when it came to women, and the mask wearing along with constant sanitation would have seriously hindered his never-ending graft. I don't think you'd find him baking banana bread or binging The Crown during lockdown. Instead, I'd not be surprised to find him downing Monster in a park in Edinburgh, surrounded by a few laddies and a few lassies. The differences between men and women haven't changed much since Burns' time, although they may present themselves slightly differently. As we have seen, men are usually deceived by the looks of women, while the lassies themselves are usually deceived by the words of men. An example of this can be found in one of Burns' more romantic poems. He said, "My love is like a red, red rose, my love is like a red, red rose, that's newly sprung in June, my love is like a melody that's sweetly playing in tune." Now most women today would claim that such words would never work on them, but Burns' reputation begs to differ. When it came to women, Burns had the efficiency of a German car manufacturer, fathering 12 children by 4 different women before his death at the age of 37. Another difference is that women tend to be more responsible for their health. While boys choose to play sport where they run each other until someone wins or the other gets a head injury, girls choose to play sports like netball, where movement of any kind is frowned upon. Girls are often more artistic and creative, with the ability to transform a historical poster of mass genocide into a Jackson Pollock painting. Girls also appear to be much more supportive of their friends, judging by the looks of their Instagram comment sections. "OMG, you're stunning," and "please marry me" are just a few comments that provide a stark contrast to the more abusive boys' group chats. However, it is in the communication department where women really do struggle. When a woman says, "Yes dear, it's fine," it is far from fine. And when they say, "I'm not hungry," they really want an extra serving of Nando's chicken, normally on your credit card. Even though they can sometimes drive man to near insanity, Burns knew that without them, our lives would be that much duller, and that we owe our lives to them. We cannot live with them, but we most certainly cannot live without them. Burns was well aware of this fact, and it is why, despite his questionable escapades, he had the utmost respect for him. To summarise, despite their very few flaws, women really are the fairer sex, and often deserve much more than men are able to give, despite our best efforts. As the saying goes, a woman can make an average man great, and a great man average. Despite all his wrongdoings, Burns acknowledged that we cannot compare to the lassies, saying, "Old nature swears the lovely dears, her noblest work she classes, her prentice hand she tried on man, and then she made the lasses." Gentlemen, I invite you to stand, raise your glasses, and toast the lassies.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks are due to Fergus for his gracious toast. Now I expect that no one has experienced a team's Burns supper quite like this special one tonight. It's with my great honour to give the reply from the lassies. Just sit back and relax this pre-recorded speech from Hong Kong to your sofa. There's no doubt in saying Robert Burns had great taste, as he loved women. In fact, it's even fair to say that without us, there would be no Burns legacy. Not a single word being written from the poet we're celebrating here tonight. He said, "I never had the least thought nor inclination of turning poet, until I got heartily in love, then rhyme and song became the spontaneous language of my heart." It's clear to me that he was a man able to express his emotions, and devoted parts of his time to writing about these women. This type of devotion is similarly found in a member of Upper Six called Miles. However, unlike Burns, this man has his eyes on one woman only. Whether morning or night, Blanquita will always be in sight. Robbie Burns also single-handedly demonstrates that men can actually multitask, contradictory to many of the boys here at Strath. Robbie's impressive record of 11 children by 5 women in just 13 years shows that some men can most certainly multitask. Despite his inability to remain faithful to anyone, Burns was a great supporter of women. He was a believer in the rights of women and held us all socially as equal, even dedicating a poem of his beliefs, The Rights of Women. This is still an ongoing battle, even here at Strathallan, where the boys in their rugby can be seen as forever being superior to all, although more challenging without the matches. Personally, I would say that us girls have just as much determination as we show in any interhouse. The only thing different, as mentioned Fergus, is we have the smart to not choose to charge into each other. Robert Burns is someone who can be rather relatable to a majority of the sixth form boys watching tonight, whether it's just his Scottish background or the traits associated with him. He has been described by many as having high spirits, being a hard drinker, and a known womanizer. These are some things which appear to not change with time, even though now we're living in a different world across screens. People have discovered there is always a way. Taking Fergus as an example, a very fitting candidate to honour Robert Burns with his speech tonight, as he presents several similarities to Mr. Burns himself. They were both born and raised in Scotland from a farming background and both heavy drinkers. Although Fergus, you might not be able to remember how much of a heavy drinker you are, but from what I understand, you qualify from your big night out. The only subtle difference between the two men being that Burns was a womanizer. So I think we all realise that Robert Burns was a lad typical to his time. He loved the fair sex and appreciated their beauty. Who would blame him? He writes in his Green Grow the Rashes O, "The sweetest hours that I ever spent are among Lassies O." I'm sure this quote still applies to all the boys at Strathallan, just ask around. Robert Burns was a man of words and did not tolerate fools easily, much like our headman. Well known for his lengthy speeches, he is sure to leave you gated for a week for foolish behaviour, something I can vouch for from my own experience. There's no doubt in saying Robert Burns was a true wordsmith, a man of love and a poet. With from an early age struggled with farm work and battled the hardship of his time, just like us today battling the challenges from the pandemic, which we are all too familiar with now. In the words of Robbie himself, "How we never loved so blindly, how we never loved so kindly, never loved and never parted, we never be broken-hearted." It remains for me to raise the toast to the laddies, without whom we wouldn't have so much to talk about and without whom we wouldn't have so much fun. So, ladies, I invite you to raise a glass to the laddies.
We sleek at Corin Timorous Beastie. Oh, what a panic in thy breastie! Thou need to start away say hasty, with bicker and brattle. I would be laith to run and chase thee with murder and prattle. I'm truly sorry man's dominion has broken nature's social union, and justifies that ill opinion which makes thee startle at thee, thy poor earth-born companion, and fellow mortal.
But now see, there art no Vigleen, improving foresight may be vain. The best-laid schemes o' mice and men gang after gley, and lay us not but grief and pain for promised joy. Still, thou art blessed compared with me, the present only touches thee, but oh, a backward cast my eye on prospects drear, and for it though I cannot see a guess in fair.
Well done and thank you to Isla and Alexander, members of Strathallan Prep School. As with all of our performers tonight, they've rehearsed these pieces in their own time. They've done a wonderful job. Usually we'd have spent weeks preparing for this.
Now, to bring proceedings to a close tonight, it's time for a formal vote of thanks for all of our performers and those who've helped put tonight together. So we might see you in half an hour as we hand over to the Headmaster, Mr. Lauder.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and guests and pupils and staff and everybody who's attended. Don't worry, I'm not about to make a speech. And I'm certainly not about to sing for you. We're nearly at the end of this evening's virtual Burns Supper. And really the final task this evening is for me to thank everybody. And so this is the vote of thanks. And I'm delighted that so many people have pulled together in such short order to put together what has been a most enjoyable evening, and therefore keeping us in touch with some of those traditions that we would normally be doing at this time of the year. That we can't do at the moment because of the lockdown. The Burns Supper at school, the sixth form Burns Supper, is one of the highlights of the year for the sixth form, and it's just a shame that we can't do it live, but at least we can still do some of that here together tonight. I particularly like to thank Xander Gibson for all the piping in tonight's Burns supper, and you'll hear from him in just a minute as we finish fittingly with the pipes. But well done, Xander, for all of that. Catherine, Howett and Craig Muirhead are hosts this evening who've linked all the events and were there at the beginning. Well done to both of you, and thank you for doing all of that. Strathallan's answer to Phil and Holly, or is it more Richard and Judy? I'll let you be the judge of that, but thank you very much to both of them. To Andy Henderson for an energetic, as expected and as usual, address to the haggis. And thank you for that, Andy. And an ebullient toast to the haggis by Johnnie Hartman. And looking very smart, Johnnie. And I hope that was apple juice. That's all I'll say. But thank you, Johnnie and Andy, for dealing with the haggis in that way. With 3 speeches with pupils. Ben on the immortal memory. Fergus as captain of school on the address to the lassies, or the toast to the lassies, and fittingly giving the last word to the other captain of school, Suzy, for the lassies' reply. Not easy as pupils making speeches to the assembled masses with adults and so on, but well done to you 3, and for Fergus and Suzy, good practice for later in the year. So I look forward to more of that going forward. Well done to Misha for singing. Delightful as ever. I love Burns songs, and you did that superbly well. So thank you, Misha, for that. And also to Isla and to Alexander for recitating one of my favourite Burns poems, one of the famous ones, To a Moose. And you did that superbly well, so well done you. And of course, to Mrs. McFarlane, to Irene for Willie Wassell's wife. Irene is a seasoned Burns performer. If you want to know how to do it properly, Irene is your woman. Thank you for that, Irene, and well done for that contribution. We're nearly done, but really for putting it all together in such short order, as I said earlier, particularly thanks to the ER team of Aileen Wilson, of Alison Duthie, of Dominic Glasgow and Claire Bath for doing all the arrangements and getting all the mailings out and all the organisation done to make this possible, to allow us to stay in touch with Burns Night here at Strathallan. So in a minute, as I say, I'll hand over to Xander and to play us out with Auld Lang Syne on the pipes. But my final thanks is to all of you who are watching, who are taking part, who are staying in touch, and who are celebrating, along with the rest of us here at Strathallan, the birth of Robert Burns and keeping alive those traditions in the school, lockdown or not. It's been a great evening entertainment, and I'm looking forward to watching it again at some point and getting a few more tips. But before I do that, I'm going to pour myself a wee dram of some Strathallan whiskey. And obviously this tumbler just appears closer in the camera than it actually is. But I'm going to enjoy that in just a minute. So to finish again, thank you to all of you for taking part. Thank you to everybody who's been involved, and thank you to everybody who's turned up and engaged and watched us this evening. And thank you very much indeed. And I hope to see you all soon.
Cheers. All the best.